Hello and welcome to A Better Morning. I'm Heather Klein. We debate the trending topics in sports from a sports betting point of view. Let's welcome today's host of Her Story in the Making and co-host of Lightning Round, Britt Flynn, head of content of Fantasy Alarm and award-winning host on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio, Howard Bender, lead NFL analyst of Fantasy Alarm, Andrew Coop Cooper, the man, the myth, the legend, fantasy exec, Corey Parson. How'd you like that, Corey? Much better.
Now
Right?
that's
much better. Let's
now
go. Let's
that's
get
an
it.
intro right
Well,
there.
it just
Yes.
it's like the NFL mantra, right? The squeaky wheel gets the grease. You cry long enough and you get a better intro.
And if
Keyshawn
I hear
Johnson.
any complaining today, I swear.
Right after that intro, man.
And hope you're having a better Friday.
Couldn't get worse.
That's right.
Right. Not every team can make it to the postseason in professional sports. Participation trophies are not given out in the NFL. The Lions fell short of the playoffs, and the Jets have not made the playoffs since Obama was president. The Falcons missed the playoffs, but with the drafting of running back Bijan Robinson, will he be enough to make the postseason? The list could go on. Is there a team you're looking at to end their playoff drought? Coop, you're up first.
Yeah. So mentioning the Falcons in the playoffs is an interesting one because someone on Reddit pointed out to me that the Falcons are in an even worse state than that. They actually have not had a winning record in 2,000 days. 2,000 days since the last time they were just above 500. In 2018, they actually did make the playoffs, right? They had a 10-7 record. They lost to the 13-3 Eagles. Eagles went on to go to that Super Bowl. Since then, they have lost the first game of their season every single year, and then it's only gone downhill from that. Imagine that, being in a losing culture for 2,000 days. That's where they are now. And then they're going to roll out a third-round quarterback as their starting quarterback this year. Might be in the same spot moving forward. This team needs to figure out who their quarterback is, figure out their identity, and change things.
Well, it sounds like with the 2000 days, they're well on their way to making a Tool album. But I think that as much as you want to go with the Lions because of their feel-good stories and Dan Campbell biting kneecaps or the Jets because we're getting Aaron Rodgers shoved down our throats, I'm going to lay a little skin on Atlanta at plus 120. The NFC South is incredibly weak, and it's pretty much wide open as to who's going to win that division. They have an elite weapons in Bijan Robinson. Drake London is in his second year and should take a leap. Kyle Pitts should come back healthy. And they did a lot to improve their defense on paper, especially their secondary. I looked at the Panthers, Corey, but I can't do it. It's very difficult to bet on anyone in the AFC because that conference is so stacked with Mahomes, Allen, Burrow, etc. So I'm not touching the odds for anyone in the AFC.
Yeah, Britt, you're right. I was going to say the Panthers, but I got another one for you. And you're also correct on the fact that, this is going to come from the NFC because the AFC has the top quarterbacks were already stout. So really, unless the Patriots or the Steelers sneak in, I really don't see it being done by anybody else. The Raiders as well also. But I'm going to say the Green Bay Packers. Now, I don't know that their playoff drought has only been 1 year and not making it into the postseason last year. But this year, no Aaron Rodgers. Addition by subtraction. I really feel that's the key right here. I think LaFleur gets a chance to coach this team the way he wants to. I think Jordan Love is going to be more impressive than people think. So I think the Green Bay Packers and the weak NFC North return to the postseason as a division champion. You can get that at about 4-1 odds right now, too. Tell them the fantasy exec sent you.
Oh, I mean, a little 2,000 days of a losing culture in Atlanta. Ooh, try being a Jets fan. All right. 54 years since the Super Bowl victory, longer than I've even been alive right now. 11 years since the playoffs. The franchise has been the joke of the NFL for decades. decades. And if we have to go out and we got to grab a hired gun like Aaron Rodgers to hopefully put us back into it, well, then you know what? That's what we're going to do. The current odds for the Jets to make the playoffs, just to make the playoffs, is minus 130. So I will just hold on to that. I will cherish that little moment right there that we have. And I will say it is the Jets.
Yeah, the Jets lost their sympathy card the moment they did bring in Aaron Rodgers, because it's too hard for us to turn around and root for him now and say,
I don't want you to root for him. Don't root
I
for him.
won't.
Just stay away from the Jets. Leave them alone. Let them just do their stupid thing. Let them just get into the stupid playoffs, lose that first game, and then we can all move on. We know that Aaron Rodgers isn't taking them to the promised land, but come on, man. Just give us our playoff run. It's just one game. One game. It's all I'm asking.
You can have one.
I'm just more concerned with the Jets because of the division that they play in, because we've talked about how good Miami could have been. 6 of their losses last year were by 1 score or less. And if Tua is healthy the entire time, that division is just so tight. It is possible that 3 of those teams make it out. I'm definitely not discrediting that, but when you beat up on each other, 6 times a year, it's going to be pretty hard.
People forget that the New England Patriots were virtually 1 game away from making the playoffs. And if Nyheim Hines doesn't run back 2 kickoffs for touchdowns, maybe that game is a little bit closer. It actually wasn't even that far off, but the kicking game kind of sealed it there. But
you also had the disaster in Vegas too.
Oh my God. Yeah. The reverse Hail Mary that Jacoby Myers threw to Chandler Jones. Yeah, that was ugly. That game, everyone remembers that play, but they had won that game a while ago. That was a comedy of errors to get to that final point. So
how it basically is like the Jets, I get it, but when you look at the AFC, I can count 5 teams not being the Jets. Only 7 go to the playoffs. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think the Jets are kind of in the same spot as teams like the Raiders, Pittsburgh, you know what I'm saying? Tennessee, the Chargers. Denver now, they got a competent head coach. Or do you think that the Jets are better than those teams?
Do I think they're better than those teams, or do I think that they can kind of scooch in for the playoffs? I mean, listen, Buffalo, you got Buffalo, the Bengals, let's say the Jaguars and the Chiefs, all right? So then, yeah, if that's the case, we need to make the playoffs out of 3. It's going to be tight. It's going to be incredibly tough to do. They need to win some games that we probably look at the schedule and we don't have it. All I'm saying is that I am legit going to just hold out hope just that we get better than last year. If you look at what we did last year, we were 7-10 last year, and we had the worst quarterback play in the NFL. I'm not saying that Rodgers is going to be MVP caliber. I'm not saying he's going to be our savior. But if we actually had a legit quarterback under center last year, I think we could have at least won another 3 games. I think we could have been 10-7, which could have gotten us into the playoffs last year.
Will the Jets be better than the Baltimore Ravens this year?
No, it'll be pretty tight. I think it'll be pretty tight.
Say yes,
I'll throw a yes out there. I will throw a yes.
We got to get some side action on that.
Let's hit it. We'll check that off air.
I'm on board.
Okay, guys. So many draft strategies out there. Heavy running back picks up front, 0 running backs, early round quarterbacks, etc. In fantasy football, historically, it's always wise to draft a running back early and most likely first. Britt, does this still ring true, or what is your thought process on when to draft a running back in your fantasy football league?
So I used to draft really running back heavy, but as the leagues have switched to playing more 3 wide receiver sets or 3 wide receiver spots instead of 2, and more actual NFL teams are switching to a committee approach, I like to use an anchor running back strategy. I have an article over at Fantasy Alarm that's included in the draft guide. But the gist of it is you draft 1 big running back between rounds 1 and 3, then fill out your other positions, and don't draft your second running back until the 8th round. And that sounds crazy to a bunch of people, but the difference in points between the RB13 and RB4 in PPR leagues last year was 48.2 points. The year before that, it was only 41.4 points. I would rather focus on getting elite or upside receivers, my quarterback, maybe even a tight end before I reach for a running back with little to no upside in that area.
When we get into group discussion, I'm going to explain why Britt is off target with that strategy right there. But just like Howard, I once used to be on SiriusXM Fantasy. As a matter of fact, the program was probably more popular than the Howard Stern Show. It hasn't been on the air for 10 years, and people still at least once or twice a month ask or talk about that program. But there was a wise old man on that program. We used to call him a king. He would always say, you cannot predict a fantasy football draft. It's the truest thing ever. You don't know what the rest of the league is thinking. You don't know what your league mates are thinking. So when you go into a draft, you got to have an open and loose strategy to put together the best team that you possibly can. Going into a draft with a predetermined strategy is a way to finish in last place. And the guy that's coming up next is pretty used to that.
All right. Shout out to Scott Engel. I mean, I don't even know why can't you name his name there, Corey? Why can't just say it? It's not Voldemort. It's Scott Engel. We love the king. That was a great show. Back in the old days, the Roto Experts. Come on, anybody can sit and champion that one there, Corey. Some might even say that was an award-winning show. Nevertheless, Corey is right. You have to be fluid with your running backs. You have to be fluid with your draft strategy. You have to take what the rest of the room is giving you. Do I like to have a really solid running back within the first 3 picks? Yeah, I usually tend to do that. That's something I've always been a running back heavy guy, but the way it is right now with garbage PPR scoring and everybody going wide receiver heavy, you got to learn to shift.
Hate to admit it, but the old guard reminiscing on the ancient days of SiriusXM is right on this one. And I have a hypothetical for you. Picture 12 zero RB drafters all in the same draft. And they actually do draft all wide receivers through the first round and don't draft Christian McCaffrey. In that situation, what's the difference between zero RB and just having bad rankings, right? The real way to play this game is to know every strategy. Know zero RB, anchor RB, robust RB, late round quarterback, yin yang tight end. Know all the targets, all the deep targets if you miss on those positions early so that you can pivot, so that you can be fluid, be like water. That's the real move. If you know every strategy, you can take the best guys available early and then down the road build it and then say after the fact, I had to go zero RB. Not that I sat down and decided not to draft Christian McCaffrey because I'm bad at this.
But the question was, what is your particular thought process? It wasn't what's the best, what do you do, It's what your thought process is.
It is.
And
Draft
so I brought
best player available. That's the process.
But you're saying that my process is wrong when
your
it's
process?
my
Because
process
what happens
and I don't end up last. I don't lose, Corey. So it actually has worked out.
Prove that,
Well,
you know what I'm saying?
Here's my question.
Prove it.
Here's my question for this strategy that I've always been interested in for the people that are fully committed to zero RB. Do people actually have 12 wide receivers ranked ahead of Christian McCaffrey, or do they have rankings, their own rankings, where they have McCaffrey at 3 and they're actively just picking somebody that they believe is worse? That's my question.
But I'm not talking zero RB. I'm talking anchor RB.
Oh yeah,
And the way that the NFL has split, there are very few bell cow backs, and the value of what you get in those middle rounds, we call it the running back dead zone for a reason. What you get in those rounds does not return value as opposed to the quarterbacks you can get, the wide receivers you can get there. So if you get your bell cow, you can wait a lot longer to get your RB2. Now, I'm not saying to pass up on value if it's sitting and staring you in the face. That's when you adapt your strategy. But for the most part, people are aware of this and they're going to see the value too. It's not like the old days where people are like, oh, Tim Tebow, number 1 overall pick. People are pretty savvy overall nowadays, and they've caught on to these strategies. So in general, it usually works.
So,
Right,
Britt,
but if you're sitting there and
into
you're
a draft, go ahead, Howard.
I was just going to say, if you're sitting there, thank you, Corey. Look at you over there.
It's Friday.
But if you're sitting there and,
No.
you're in the draft, right? And round 1 comes and you look and you're like, well, I have these 2 wide receivers ranked ahead of this available running back. Boom, I grab that. It comes back around to the second round, and you're like, I still have these 2 wide receivers ranked ahead of this other running back. I take that wide receiver. When it comes around to the 3rd round, if you're still looking at that and you're saying these wide receivers have more value than the running back does, then do you take that running back and settle, or do you take that, do you take those wide receivers because you say, well, I got 3 wide receivers and a flex that I have to start. I have these wide receivers ranked higher. I'm just going to have to go and find some more value at running back a little later on. So, you're throwing away the anchor RB strategy there. You're not necessarily doing 0 RB, because I think a lot of people misunderstand what 0 RB actually means. But if you have to wait until the 4th or the 5th round before you really start feeling like you're getting value, and you have a running back ranked ahead of the rest of the wide receivers, I feel like in those first 4 or 5 rounds, you have to do whatever the draft is giving you, and then pivot your strategy in the middle. If that means that you're grabbing RBs in the RB, dead zone, as they put it. I mean, some people call it a dead zone. I've seen people put Miles Sanders listed as a running back in the dead zone. So I don't agree with what the dead zone actually means. I'm looking at it as the value in relation to the other players who are on the board.
Well, the dead zone has changed because wide receivers have been pushed up the board. But last season, I can provide you numbers. It's all in the article, in my Anchor RB article in the draft guide, if you want to check it out.
We should talk about this more on Alarm Fantasy Football today.
I think we have a lot more left to say, but
I think we have a lot.
We got to move on.
I'm not going to be there for that discussion.
Corey, come join us.
Join us.
1 p.m. Eastern.
Hit me up.
Yeah.
I'll hit you up.
All right, let's move over to MLB. The network discussed the potential landing spots for Shohei Ohtani if the Angels trade him. If Los Angeles doesn't trade him, he'll become an unrestricted free agent in 2024. The Dodgers are considered the favorite for a long-term deal, as well as the Giants and Yankees. In terms of a short deal, the Phillies and Rangers are a rental option. What uniform will Ohtani be wearing in the 2024 season? Corey, you're up.
On the 2024 season, Ohtani will be wearing the white, blue, and orange of the New York Mets. So in this way, we never have to worry about him again, because he'll immediately get injured and he'll immediately be a disappointment to New York Met fans all across this great land. As a matter of fact, if Ohtani is dealt to the New York Mets, the commissioner should step in and say, hey, we can't let this happen. Send him to the team in New York that really wins, or should I say used to win. But nah, I think you look at the power teams, which the Mets are not one. Teams like the Dodgers, teams like the Yankees. It seems like the Dodgers are going to be strong enough with their package to put out there to go get Ohtani. The Yankees back in the day would have done it, but this new group is not going to get it done.
So the question is, where is he going to be in 2024? You don't need a trade package in 2024, because what's going to happen is that a team like the Reds, a team like the Rangers, a team like the Orioles, teams who have nice capital in their farm system and are willing to just pony up in order to make that run, somebody's going to rent Ohtani for the duration of this season. And then the Yankees are going to come swooping in with a big-ass check, and they're going to grab Ohtani, and they're going to put him into the Bronx. That's what's going to happen. The Yankees are not, as much money as Steve Cohen wants to throw around and piss away, the Yankees are not going to let them trump them on the on which team in New York Ohtani belongs on.
They should just let every team rent him for a week or so for the rest of the year and just sell 1 million jerseys. That's what I would do. Just pitch a game, hit a couple dingers, and move on next city. But I agree with Howard that he's going to end up in pinstripes, and that's where he belongs. Honestly, if you have I see you, Howard. Go on, celebrate here. But if you have a attraction like this, it belongs in 3 places. It belongs in Hollywood, Broadway, or Las Vegas. And we know that the A's ownership group is not going to make this move. You got to bring him in, put him in front of the entire world, and parade him around. We've been talking about this in the show for a while now, that Shohei Ohtani, everyone in the world should know this guy. Everyone in the world should be traveling to see this guy. He's a destination in himself. So get him into the big lights, and maybe the Angels, if they can't win with Trout and Ohtani, should just trade their team to another location.
Well, I'm going to counter Howard's homerism and go with the Dodgers.
With your own homerism.
I couldn't wear a hat 3 days in a row, but I had it on hand for me. But think about it, especially if Kershaw comes back for another, potentially his last season. They won another World Series to cement Kershaw's legacy. And can you imagine how unstoppable this team would be with a rotation of Freddie Freeman, Mookie Betts, and Ohtani, and then a pitching core of Kershaw, Ohtani, and a returning Dustin May? It's going to be expensive. We all know that. But the Dodgers have never shied away from spending money to create a super team. And the last odds that I saw for them of getting him was plus 250. And that just feels too good to pass up. I will say if the Yankees underperform the second half of the season, that they'll make a play for him. But somebody's talking to him after every loss to the Dodgers game, being like, you can just move across town and get some wins.
I didn't know we could just pick our favorite team for this. Corey, you should have put him on the Carolina Panthers.
I'm not a Panthers fan. I like America's team, the Dallas Cowboys. But there's a good topic in here. Athletes you would travel to go see. Ohtani would not be one.
Ohtani would not be one that you
No,
would travel
why?
to go see?
I'm just not that impressed with the whole Babe Ruth imitation thing. You know what I'm saying? I'm not that impressed.
The guy that says Babe Ruth never existed.
It's
not
not
impressed.
a Babe
I would
Ruth
travel to go
imitation.
see Victor Wembanyama.
And get popped like Britney Spears.
Yeah. Well, watch out now.
That's allegedly.
So you would have been like, yeah, I would totally travel to go see Manute Bol on the court. That would be amazing to watch. It'd be freakishly awesome. Like, that's crazy that you would even say you wouldn't travel to go see Ohtani because you don't believe in the Babe Ruth thing. The dude is doing it on the field. He's hitting home runs the same day that he's pitching 6 shutout innings. You don't find that at all impressive, Corey? You show me one other player who's done it.
About travel to go see him. I'm not going to go. If I go to Anaheim, last thing I'm worried about is Ohtani. You know what I'm saying?
Why would you even go to Anaheim unless you're going to Disney World, I guess?
Sharks.
Very good question.
Oh, they're in San Jose.
Anaheim's a hole, dude. Come on. Yeah. We all know that.
I come down to the Bay Area and kick it with Howard, the Yay area.
Dude, by the time you get here, I'll be long gone. They're running me out of town. By the way, Britt, Dustin May is broken. He's broken.
You're broken.
He's broken. They've ruined him.
I love Britt's response. I'm starting to laugh. I couldn't help myself.
Because she knows he's broken. She knows he is. You had a better argument if you said Julio Urias instead of him.
They're broken.
The 8 participants are set for the 2023 T-Mobile Home Run Derby at T-Mobile Park in Seattle on Monday. White Sox Luis Robert Jr. and Mets Pete Alonso currently have 25 homers for the season and are the 1 and 2 seeds, respectively. Do you expect either guy to win the Home Run Derby, or do you have another guy in mind to win the Derby? Howard, you're up first.
Oh, I think it's definitely going to be somebody else. I'm going to go with Mookie Betts because he plays on the Dodgers and because Britt's going to want to say him and I'm going to want to take him away from her. No, Mookie Betts winning the home run derby. No, just, you know what? Just give it to Julio Rodriguez. It's his hometown fans. He needs that. He had a very slow start to the season. He hasn't been hitting all that well. I mean, granted, he still has 13 home runs and he's got 20 stolen bases. And we absolutely love the game that he plays, but that 250 average is not good. And he needs that little jump start. And what's better than that, home field advantage, little jolt that you get for Julio Rodriguez. So that's the guy who I'm putting my money on. It's going to be Julio Rodriguez against Randy Arozarena in the finals, and Julio comes out on top.
You can laugh all you want, Howard, but I'm going to sprinkle some more Dodgers fandom into this discussion here today, and I have a legit take. I am going Mookie Betts at plus 1,000. He's a 3 seed, but he's plus 1,000. I'll take that every damn day. He's 5th in the league right now in home runs. And after a slow start, he's been hot as fish grease. He's hit 6 home runs over the past 13 games after just hitting 17 the other 70. He is on a roll. Plus, he has clear instructions from his mama to not finish last. And I don't know about y'all, but when your mama gives you orders, you go the extra mile to make sure that you don't disappoint them. I don't usually place bets on Dodgers or my teams or anything, but I laid down some money on plus 1,000 with a guy who's on a roll like Mookie right now.
My Auntie Coop watches this show every day, and she's a monster Dodgers fan, so she's going to love you today, Britt. I will say Mookie Betts, this guy can put his mind to anything, right? He wants to be a professional baseball player, easy. He wants to be a professional bowler, does it. So I think it's possible. The only one I don't think can win it is the catcher who's got his dad throwing him pitches, Adley Rutschman. I'm ruling him out. But for me, I'm going with Big Vladdy Daddy Guerrero Jr. Shout out Toronto Dave in this chat. Shout out the Toronto area. This guy has the record for the most home runs hit in one of these contests. He didn't win, but he hit 91 home runs. How much fun would it be for this league to have him actually go out there and win it, just like his pops did without the batting gloves back in 2007? So give me Vladdy. Let's go.
All right, Vladdy Dotty. Pause. So let's get into it. I'm gonna go with the big dude from the Mets, Pete Alonso, right? And he won the joint a couple times before already. But it's like kind of like the 3-point contest or the 3-point or the slam dunk contest. You have some people that show up to these events just to participate, take pictures, bring their kids out there. Your man Pete Alonso like really wants to win this. Like he goes out there, he has a routine. He goes out there, he tries to win it. It's important to him. I mean, he keep being in it every year. You already proved that you can win the joint. Why keep coming back? Because he want to keep winning. He hit monster home runs. Listen, I think it's him. I think it's his award. I think it's his contest to lose.
I will say this to Britt's point. I actually saw a clip of Mookie Betts out there just standing in the batter's box, watching pitches, just visualizing hitting a ton of home runs. Not using up his swing or anything like that. He's just sitting there visualizing them. Mookie's definitely taking this seriously.
He ain't disappointing mama.
I know.
Can we just say that the entire panel just completely ignored hotter than fish grease? I don't know what that is, where it's coming from. I don't know nothing about no fish grease. Britt, I need you to explain that.
Sounds bad.
The fish grease.
What?
We'll talk about it after the show or on the alarm show later.
Alarm Fantasy Football, hotter than fish grease and running back heavy talk. Oh, and Scott Fish going to join us. Beautiful.
Big day today on the Fantasy Alarm Show.
Hotter than fish
and Corey Parson joining us too, right?
Corey Parson's going to join us.
Yeah, I'm come through and talk some zero RB or whatever. You know what I mean?
All right. Yeah, we got a segment for that, baby. Let's go. Big day today, Friday.
I mean, the stats add up. You know what I'm saying? I'm the fantasy executive for a reason. I'm fantasy executive for a reason. I am hotter than fish grease.
I don't ever want to be compared to fish grease, dude. Like
burning up. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That was today's edition of A Better Morning. Thank you to Howard, Britt, Coop, and the legend, Corey Parson. Make sure you check out Britt, Howard, and Coop on Fantasy Alarm Football at 1 p.m. Eastern. And if you missed any of our shows, you can find them all on our YouTube channel or at bettersports.com. We wish everyone a better weekend.